Welcome to another episode of NACIC Bible Stories. Hey, do you ever wish you could see something with your own eyes to believe it? Maybe you hear a rumor, like your best friend got a new puppy, and you just have to see it to believe it, right? Well, in today's story, we're going to meet someone who had trouble believing in something really important, until he saw it with his own eyes. It's the story of Thomas, one of Jesus' closest friends, who learned a powerful lesson about faith. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. The story of Thomas, believing without seeing. After Jesus' crucifixion, everything had changed. The disciples were scared, really scared. Their best friend, Jesus, had been taken from them in the most awful way. Imagine the sadness and confusion they must have felt. They didn't know what to do next, so they locked themselves in a room, hoping to stay safe from the people who had hurt Jesus. But even though the doors were locked tight, something amazing happened. Suddenly, Jesus appeared in the room with them. That's right. Even though the doors were locked, Jesus was standing right there in front of them. His voice filled the room as he said, "Peace be with you." Now, let's stop right there for a moment. Imagine the surprise. The disciples must have been staring in total disbelief. How was this even possible? But Jesus wasn't done yet. He showed them the marks in his hands, the very same hands that had been nailed to the cross. And he showed them his side, where a soldier had pierced him with a spear. The disciples were shocked, amazed, and probably a little confused too. They were seeing Jesus alive again, just as he had promised. But there was one disciple who wasn't there that day. His name was Thomas. You might have heard of him before, right? People sometimes call him Doubting Thomas. Why? Well, Thomas wasn't with the other disciples when Jesus appeared to them. So when the disciples excitedly told him the good news that Jesus was alive, Thomas didn't believe them. He wasn't ready to just take their word for it. Can you blame him? It's pretty hard to believe something so huge without seeing it with your own eyes. So Thomas said, "Unless I see the marks of the nails in his hands, and put my finger on those marks, and put my hand in his side, I will not believe." Imagine saying something like that. Thomas was asking for proof. He wanted to see Jesus for himself. He wanted to touch the same marks that the other disciples had seen. Thomas was looking for evidence to believe. Now, let's take a moment to think about this. Have you ever had trouble believing something that was hard to understand? Maybe a friend told you a crazy story, or your parents promised you something amazing, but you weren't sure if it was true. Sometimes it's really hard to believe things we can't see or touch. It's just the way we are as humans. We like to see things with our own eyes before we believe them. But in today's story, Thomas is about to learn something really special. Jesus is going to show him what it means to have faith, even when we can't see everything clearly. Jesus shows Thomas his hands inside. So, here's where the story gets really exciting. 8 days later, the disciples were all together again, and this time, Thomas was with them. They were still in that locked room, still trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Suddenly, again, Jesus appeared right in front of them, even though the doors were still locked. And once again he said, "Peace be with you." Can you imagine how the disciples must have felt at that moment? First, they're shocked and amazed, and then Jesus speaks to them in that calm voice, "Peace be with you." And then Jesus did something amazing. He turned to Thomas. Remember, Thomas had said he wouldn't believe unless he saw the marks in Jesus' hands and touched his side. And Jesus knew exactly what Thomas needed. He said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here and look at my hands. Stretch out your hand and put it in my side. Then, do not be unbelieving, but believing." Now picture this. Jesus is standing right there, offering Thomas the chance to touch the very marks that had been made when he was nailed to the cross. Jesus didn't yell at Thomas for doubting. He didn't say, "You should have believed without seeing." Instead, he showed Thomas the proof he needed. Jesus gave Thomas exactly what he asked for. And you know what? That was enough for Thomas. As soon as Thomas saw Jesus' hands and touched his side, he knew, without a doubt, that it was really Jesus alive again. All of his doubt melted away. Thomas fell to his knees and said, "My Lord and my God," a powerful lesson for all of us. But Jesus had one more thing to say to Thomas, something that's just as important for us to hear. He said, "You believe, Thomas, because you have seen. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." Wow, did you catch that? Jesus was telling Thomas that it's not always about seeing with our eyes. Faith is about believing, even when we can't see everything clearly. Jesus was saying that there are many people like us who believe in him, even though we don't get to see him in person. Why does this matter? So, why is this story so important? Well, it's because this story teaches us about faith. Faith means believing in something even when we can't see it right in front of us. Just like Thomas, we might sometimes find it hard to believe in things we can't see. Maybe we can't see Jesus with our eyes, but we know he's with us every day. We can feel him in our hearts, guiding us, loving us, and helping us through tough times. And just like Thomas, we don't always need to see to believe. Faith is all about trusting in something bigger than ourselves. It's about believing that Jesus loves us and is always with us, even though we can't physically see him. Summing it all up, let's take a moment to remember the big lessons from today's story. First, we learned that Thomas didn't believe Jesus had risen from the dead until he saw the nail marks and touched Jesus' side. Thomas needed proof to believe. But then Jesus showed Thomas those marks, and Thomas believed. And Jesus told him something important. Blessed are those who have not seen, yet have believed. This means that even though we can't see Jesus with our eyes, we can still have faith and believe in him with all our hearts. And that's the message for us today. Faith is about trusting in Jesus, even when we can't see everything clearly. So, remember this, you don't have to see Jesus with your eyes to know he's with you. He's always with you, loving you, and guiding you, and he wants you to believe in him. Just like Thomas, we can say, "My Lord and my God." Thanks for joining us on this episode of NACIC Bible Stories. We'll see you next time with more stories that bring the Bible to life, just for you. Till we meet again, stay safe and be blessed.